And we welcome you in to a rowdy and live and in a different look, so to speak, episode of Catching Up with Coach. I am your solo host for the evening. I'm Coach Trey. I am incredibly excited to be here tonight. Incredibly excited to not only be here, but to be here in what I would call the I would say the good, like the good setup. I mean, to tell you, y'all, I want to make a shout out. Can I make a shout out really quick? Can I do that? Let's see. Let me get a shout out.
Boom, boom, boom. Let's get a shout out. Had to fix the mic really quick. I'm on a new setup, y'all, so just give me a second. Here we go. Okay. So I want to give out a massive and emphatic shout out to Rob over at the Apple Genius Bar over at my local Baton Rouge location. So let me just tell you briefly. I don't want to go too long-winded with this one, but so for all of this time that we've done this show, we have I've basically done this from like a certain laptop. It's not the laptop that I wanted to do the show from, but it's the laptop that I had, right? So I've been kind of forced and beholden to this computer, okay? So this computer has never done anything that I wanted. It wouldn't connect when I wanted. It would not do things the way that I want them to be done. But I have a personal Mac. And if for those of you, and this is not obviously sponsored, we're not big enough to be sponsored by Apple or anything like that. But for those of you that know anything about, Apple devices, I very much prefer them. And so I spent literally my entire afternoon yesterday evening from, 5 until literally after 8 o'clock at night. I feel like getting this thing together and Rob over at the Apple store, who's been there for over 17 years, by the way, shout out to my boy, downloaded years and years worth of software updates for me onto this computer to make sure that we could be here today. And we could not be more excited. Russo obviously tuned in from the big channel here, letting a couple people filter in super quick before I start my deep dive. But we're here. I don't know how this looks. Obviously, the mic at the beginning of the show was not plugged right up. So if I sounded like I was a million miles away, I'm sorry about that. But I wanted to get everything right and ready the way that God intended. And some of that has to do with, what it is that, you look and sound like. And so sometimes whenever we would get, comments at the end of the show and it'd be like, man, the mic's awesome. Headphones are great. We could hear everything that you're saying, but the camera's too far up or the camera's too far down or the camera's too far away. I can see too much of the room. I can't see enough of the room. And it's like, well, first of all, I've kind of kept the room bland on that back wall, like on these walls, which y'all can't see. I've actually got, things on there. So I'm trying to like make this room artsy a little bit. But when I set up this new laptop, I the first thing I noticed was how like zoomed in it was. And I was like, oh my God, this thing is pretty freaking zoomed in. Like I can see very clearly now that the rain is gone, you know what I'm saying? And so we've got new like high condensate strength. I mean, not condensate strength, high LED strength, like light bulbs in here to like get some vibrancy in the room. I've got a secondary monitor behind me, projecting, some white light into the thing. And it's still coming in a little bit dark, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to work on that as we grow. Cause this is really the growth of the show is getting the audio and the video set up, ready to be successful. And we've never really taken it, to that extreme before, but obviously with, the recent, reception, it's, I mean, why wouldn't we invest into ourselves? So, incredibly excited to be here this afternoon, incredibly excited to have some of those things set up. So I guess we're 5 minutes in, we can go ahead and get started. I did want to make just a little bit of house cleaning announcement. It has seemed as though Tuesday has kind of felt like the day. Um, can we go early here on Mondays and whatnot? Certainly. Sometimes I even prefer the Mondays just because, everything that I wanted to say from, Saturday is kind of fresh in my mind. And, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure that I really want to go, to like, okay, so if we did like a live post game reaction, like maybe, somewhere down the line, Russo would want to do something like that, and we could certainly get into that conversation. But, for lack of a better term, the ecology of this show is to give you, our opinion on, what we see, how we see it, and with time to prevail, right? So we kind of wanted this entire show, and certainly, this segment, to be, something that we did out of our own interests. And my specific interest is certainly aligned in X's and O's, wins and losses, the betting odds, and the betting angle has always been his thing. However, what I will say, it does take a little bit of time to digest everything and then get it all into the people streets, if you know what I mean. Um, I will say that also too, that there is an incredible amount of, like, for example, I want to I want to say one thing, but then I know that the way that that's going to come off is likely of the you're too much into in your heart about it variety. So it really does take like that extra day sometimes to really like digest, go back and watch a couple of things, not over an adult beverage, or, not, texting the group or texting Russo or doing whatever. And I can get like a clear headed assessment of what it is. It's kind of like my version of watching film, if you will. Since I do not have the ability to get a all 22 copy. I will say that I'm working on that. Um, but we actually have some breaking news. We do have a breaking news edit. Can we get a breaking news edit? Um, Wilson Alexander, Wilson Alexander of the Advocate in Baton Rouge has announced that LSU will have home games against Alabama, Texas, Texas A&M, and Clemson next year. Which, okay, all right. Well, that actually turns us into our first topic of the evening, because we were going to get into the permanent opponents, or the 4-year permanent opponents of your SEC football. And so we can dive right into that. All right, guys. Now we're getting cooking. Now I'm getting the blood going, because that is actually, as a matter of fact, that is exactly what I wanted to talk about. And as you can see here in my little handy dandy notebook over here, we have been writing down several things for quite some time. One of which was how I was going to tell you all how excited I was about these permanent schedule games. But you know what? That actually just fired me up a little bit more. So the way that you're going to have this set up, and I would actually share my screen here if I felt like it would go well. However, the software on my computer is very different than the computer that I have been. So I'm going to go ahead and do it a little bit different way. If you just give me a second. All right. Let's go permanent opponents. Well, actually, we can go to the official thing. Let's go to the official thing. So we'll take this home quick, and we'll take this to the team that you all care about the most, which is obviously your Fighting Tigers of LSU. So let's talk about this for a second. So the 2026 opponents for your Fighting Tigers of LSU looks like Texas A&M, at Arkansas, at Ole Miss. So back-to-back road trips for LSU going to Ole Miss. Alabama at the crib, State at the crib, Texas at the crib, and you get to go to Auburn, at Kentucky, and at Tennessee. Wait, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is live, y'all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. LSU is going to play A&M at the crib, Arkansas on the road, Ole Miss on the crib, Bama at the crib, State at the crib, Texas at the crib, at Jordan Hare, at Kentucky, and at Tennessee. And your 2027 opponents at A&M, Arkansas at home. Okay. Okay. So A&M on the road, Arkansas at home, Ole Miss at home, Missouri at home, Vandy at home, Oklahoma at home, Florida on the road, Georgia on the road, South Carolina on the road. 2027 looks like your year. 2026 looks like it's going to be a knife fight every single week. That is absolutely insane. We're not even going to have a long enough show to get to all that. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. We're not even going to have enough show. We're not even going to have enough show to get into all that tonight, but we're going to go based off what we were going to talk about. And that's going to be your permanent opponents being Ole Miss, A&M, and Arkansas. And so what I would say comfortably is that I will not I will I guess we could do it this way too, if y'all don't mind. Okay, so that's the same link. Okay, so LSU's pissed off that they don't get the Alabama thing every year, but the problem with that is that you're going to get them no matter what because you're going to play them next year anyway, despite the fact that they're not a permanent opponent, right? So everybody had kind of like their thing to say. So you've got 2026 and 2027, and then like this is an incredible schedule. Like this is an incredible schedule. The reason why this is going to go back and bite them in the rear end as it relates to everybody being, vulnerable or, um, you know, everyone wants to get their team into the college football playoff. It's going to be pretty hard whenever everybody's beating everybody's ass. You know what I'm saying? Like it's going to be a little bit difficult for us to really garner a 10-win season whenever you do that much traveling to that many good football teams. But you know what? This is the bed that we laid in. This is the football that we asked for. We've been really hopeful for good road games, for good games to want to go to as the fan, and so we're certainly going to get that. I actually did accurately predict those three, by the way. That's not like a pat on the back or anything. It just felt like that's going to be that's who it was going to be. And so as we come down the proverbial aisle, so to speak, I do want to just make mention that this is a good thing for your permanent opponents. It really also doesn't make that much of a hill of beans because you're going to play everybody on on a 4-year rotation anyway. So, and I mean, and look, and here's a good one. So A&M coming to us this year and next blows for them, but you get to go to Ole Miss this year and next year too. And not only that, but you're also playing Texas, Alabama, Tennessee. Did I see Georgia on there too? No, Auburn. So you get to go to Auburn, to Kentucky, to Ole Miss, to Arkansas, to Tennessee. In 7, you get to play Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and A&M. So, I mean, you're getting. I mean, Kev's got a point. Shout out to my boy Kev. This is a really, really good point. The problem is that you have to look at it through the other lens too, and so we really don't like to do that. We don't really like to play these mental gymnastics when it comes down to like the scheduling format, because what is fair? Like Vanderbilt obviously looks like kind of a more aggressive game this year because they've got Diego Pavia, who's 53 and still has eligibility. So and Tennessee's been good for the last few years under Josh Heupel, but before then they were not. So what's Florida these days? As soon as they get somebody at the helm, I think Florida is going to be a powerhouse again. Unfortunately, I don't think that person's Billy Napier, and whoever it is next, maybe it's Lane, maybe it's somebody else, maybe maybe it is somebody different. So we'll certainly get into that. Um, I don't want to get too far away from this. We're already 15 minutes into the show. We've talked about the schedules. I'm not mad about it. I actually like it a little bit. It's going to be crazy. It's going to cause for a lot of concern for people that want to go 10, 11, 12 wins. Well, you're not going to do that in a 9-game SEC schedule. I think you're going to have to get used to 9-3s and even some 8-4s getting into the college football playoff. As we come down the aisle here, like I've said before, because you're just not going to let all these MAC teams and 10-2 and 11-1 teams with 112 in the league strength of schedule get into the college football playoff. You're going to let a 9-3 Auburn team get in with the 7th strength of schedule. So that's certainly what we're gearing up for. But I just wanted to scratch that off the list really quick and get that talked about. So the one thing I did want to bring up briefly is what we saw with LSU and Southeastern Louisiana. Listen, this was never going to be a game that we were looking forward to. This was never going to be a game that we looked over to. We look down Nicholson Drive, if you're a Louisiana resident, you'll know what I'm talking about, and say, like, that was a good game. Like, you accomplished a lot there. There are things to be accomplished, but accomplishing a lot against an inferior opponent at your house at nighttime is very, very difficult for me to give you benefit of the doubt on. However, the one thing that I have always said about these games and what we said last week, albeit a brief, episode, was the one thing that you did need to see how the backups would look in the event that they were, pushed into action. And one of those backups that we saw that actually kind of carried the day more than what, you or I might have thought was actually, no other than Juwan Johnson. And if Kev is still in here, the Juwan Johnson train is certainly trying to fuel up with the coal and leave the station. You feel me? Because he was running mean. And I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Caden Durham right now, but it seems as though he's seeing too much, and I think he's a little frustrated. If it's not that, then what is it? Like, why are you not running through the clear and obvious, hole, on the offensive line on the goal line? You're 5 yards out from the goal line. Bauer Sharp, kind of orbits over into motion as a used fullback and completely crushes a fella into the windpipe. On the right side of the line. And all you had to do was just step over 1-2 and go straight through the hole, and it was there. And what did he do? He got nervous that it didn't develop fast enough and cut back left, and he stopped on the 2-yard line. And so you would ultimately end up getting the points there, but you're making it hard on yourself. What if that's 3rd and goal? What if that's 4th and goal, at Vaught Hemingway this coming weekend? You need to have the vision that you had last year if you want to be successful. And if Juwan Johnson is giving that to you, then he must be the only one. So it is what it is. There's another one. There's another sub that a backup that came in, and I will confidently tell you, when we started this show, years ago, I told Russo that I was always a prove it to me person. And then whenever Michael Van Buren came over, I said, but he played meaningful minutes and was forced into action at State. Now, he wasn't, the first season Denver Broncos Peyton Manning, but he was at the floor serviceable, and he was like good in ways. And so what I didn't really understand was, the hatred behind, because he didn't have good practice film and everyone was tripping and they were calling for AJ Swan. Does anybody else remember what AJ Swan looked like whenever he came into the football game? Because I do, and I remember having like multiple situations where I thought I was going to have a heart attack. This dude is clearly an upgrade from that. AJ could not be what this guy is. Period. Point blank. Done. I'm not going to disrespect a student athlete, but sources told me that LSU was the worst team in college football for going 3 and out to start the game. You would be correct. I too am in that group chat. That's one of my boys. Shout out to T Money there. So yes, getting into the Michael Van Buren talk and getting into the script talk. We're actually going to talk about that here in just a second, Tyler. So hang in there. We're going to get into the first script here in just a second in our next segment. I will say, and thank you for saying source is not reliable source. It's clear to make that distinction. It's interesting because Michael Van Buren is obviously a gamer. Clearly, he's not a practice player. He doesn't perform well in practice. There's not one media member that said that he did anything great throughout the summer and the spring, or the fall for that matter. And so for him to come into the game and to look like that, it tells me when the lights are bright is whenever he wants to shine. And you know what? Good. Like that is the type of fella that you need if God forbid something happened to Garrett, like you have someone to hold the torch until you can get Garrett back. So I was really hoping we might could see Colin Hurley too. Maybe even some Juwan Johnson at Wildcat, but it seems like they might save that package for, when they need it. But I liked what they did. I think there was some concern on the right side of the offensive line. Unfortunately, I think Weston Davis is getting a little bit lost in the communication of it all. They're not passing off really any stunts. And again, I am not in any way a offensive line guru, but I do listen to intelligent people that are smarter than me. And I do have done that for several years now after football games, college and Sunday variety. And I know that guards and tackles are supposed to communicate sometimes without communicating. You're supposed to communicate by having your, you are. So for example, if I'm a right tackle and I am here, I can't see and do everything. So I have to have my hand out to tell me where something is at. So what I'm seeing from a very layman's perspective is more altitude. Shout out Polar Express. But from my layman's perspective, what I'm seeing is that this communication is not happening. Like, right guard doesn't know what right tackle has, and the right tackle doesn't know what right guard has. And so they end up colliding into each other, touching shoulders, and then letting the same stunt go through the whole night. And it was the same stunt, and it was a little loop on each side. And the left side of the line would do it beautifully. Tyree and Paul were doing it great. And then Braylon would step in and like fill the gap. And then you'd have Caden kind of have to chip on the right side every single time. And so what I just don't understand is why this is so difficult for us to conceptualize, especially in game, time after time after time. If it happens once, twice, three times, okay, guys, we're coming to the bench. What are you seeing, Weston? Like, what are you seeing? And this is not all on Weston. This is definitely not all on him. This is a full commitment to the teaching that you are getting. And if you are not getting the accurate teaching, or you're not receiving the message, then something has to change. Like, maybe Alex Atkins comes down and talks to the offensive line room. I don't know. I'm not in the room. I don't know. But Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and the Lambs. Like, can we get some more? Excuse me. Can we get some more consistent play from the right side of the line? Because it's affecting now your star running back. And so all that to say, it's something. AJ, we would know about this card, right? AJ had a sick 86 overall card in Ultimate Team. Now, he does have a sick card in Ultimate Team, but that is strictly because his last name is Swan, and they made an animal meme out of it. But anyway, as it relates to the game and what I saw, I did see there were some things. The offense finally tried to spread it out. We're still waiting on Chris Hilton to get involved. And unfortunately, that is taking longer than we would like for it. The drops have to stop too, by the way. And we'll get into that here in our next segment. Before we do that, I want to just take a second really, really quick to shout out our friends over at Web Western. I'm wearing this nice Straight Shooter Duck Club hat. The material on this is just awesome, y'all. There's actually like a panel in the front part of the bridge of the hat that you can't see that keeps all of the sweat and the gunk and the gross from damaging like the front side of the hat. Now, granted, if you're touching the bill or doing whatever, then it's going to get dirty, but you just clean it. But it's water repellent material. These hats are awesome. I obviously have this one and then the Frost camo hat that you guys have seen. Super sick company. Incredibly excited to be affiliated with them. So if you guys are interested, shoot me over a DM. And we'll get you a little discount code on that from yours truly. Working on maybe a giveaway here for 100 subscribers. So if we want to obviously get to that, we got to start hitting that like and subscribe button. So now would be a good time to do that. Just pan out, look down, make sure you're subscribed. If not, set the notification bell. Make sure you know when we're going live. That way I don't have to send the link to you. For my personal people, you should already do that because you love me. Thank you. And then certainly don't want to forget, how much of this is done behind the scenes by Russo. I just want to give him a shout out, man. Love you. There's a lot of things that happen, the videos, the edits, helping me get, the video to look the way that I want. A lot of that is done. The majority of that is done by him. So for him to allow me to continue to have the platform and talk here is just awesome, dude. He's an excellent friend and certainly somebody that I really respect a lot for what he does for me personally and obviously for this brand. But just wanted to give him a shout out, and he's a pretty thankless person, so I wanted to make sure he got his flowers. But now I want to get into section 3. Section 3 for me is kind of big, so I'm going to probably take the rest of the show to talk about this, and we may even have to get into section 4 on the Thursday pod. We're going to try to tackle this quickly. We're already 26 minutes in, and I didn't want to go over 40. So here we go. Comments, throw them in there. If we get off channel and we get off topic, do it. I don't care. Put the comments in there as we go. Definitely want to let it be known how much we are looking forward to this weekend of college football. There's a lot of incredible games. Obviously, the one that you guys care about is going to be LSU Ole Miss, so I'm going to spend the majority of the time obviously tonight and then finishing up here and going into Thursday talking about it. But we will have a lot to say on the Thursday pod about all the other games because there are quite a lot of games. Really excited about LSU Ole Miss. The injuries, not so much. One of them that might have flown under the radar a little bit is more along the lines of Gabe Relaford maybe being out for a while. I don't want to say the season. I've already kind of said that already, that I don't know. They're trying to get a second opinion. A dislocated shoulder is not great. If there's ligament damage or bone damage, you certainly have to go in and have surgery to repair that, and that does take time. It's also very, very painful, and we certainly hate that for him. He was incredible in the run game. It just means more snaps for the other edges, like Jamar Butler, Pyburn, maybe even homeboy from over in Gonzales, Dylan Carpenter. Jesus, I mean, he looks like an Adonis and like he's ready to rock. Rocking the stash too. Little Tom Selleck coming off the edge, yeah. I need to hear about Weeks and Kiffin's daughter. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that because I think that the internet's doing that at pretty much its own good service. Landry Kiffin came out and hard launched her episode, her relationship with Whit Weeks, and did like her whole like get ready with me that she does with Coach Lane all the time. But she did it from like Weeks's dorm, like with his sister, and they were like going back and forth and having like a girl's time or whatever. Anyway, it was actually really funny because that is literally the best possible time for you to, to announce like a relationship is the week that you go and play him. So that's really funny. And I'm sure Lane's going to have fun on Twitter with that if he hasn't already. But as it relates to the game, this is how I see it. I'm going to be honest. If you guys really want to know what I think, there's one play that I want you guys to watch. One. And it's consequently the best play that Garrett Nussmeier, I guess, thought he might have done all night long. And it was the Garrett Nussmeier scramble for 26 yards. He kind of hypes up the crowd, laughs a little bit. It's kind of difficult to see from the side because the TV camera is from the side. But if you are able to see a replay from the back, you will see what I'm talking about. But you could even still see it. He had at minimum 2 wide open receivers, maybe 3. The argument can be made for 3 on that play. Aaron Anderson just tears ass up the seam, and it's his man on his outside shoulder, and the safety kind of bit on the Bauer Sharp route and to the other side. It might have been Xavier Thomas on the other side and kind of bit over that way. And so it was literally a 15-yard gap where Garrett could have just lobbed the ball in there. And it was And I kind of saw it live and I went, but he might have saw the safety. Like maybe he didn't, but you could have zipped it in there. And then, but from looking from the side, you kind of don't know like how much, like, cause you see it like this and you can't tell what this is. But when you see it from the backside angle, this was literally like 15 yards wide. And so he had all the time in the world to get the ball down there, but he tucked it and he ran. Maybe the pocket was a little too messy for him. I'm not exactly sure who he was looking for on that play, but it clearly wasn't Aaron Anderson, because if he would have seen them, and it was him and the pearly gates with Saint Peter at the front waiting on him. But it is what it is. That needs to change. Like, you can't afford to do that going into Ole Miss. Like, you need to be P's and Q's on your things. I need everybody to be on the same page. Tempo, tempo, tempo. Check with me, and then tempo, tempo, tempo. Like, when you have them on their heels, you need to attack. And I know that we really haven't done a lot of that. It's been a lot of huddling and check with me's and getting lined up, but it's too much. It's just too much. You are trying too hard to do too much, and that is why you have false start penalties. That is because you are trying to get everything set up and then make the defense make a mistake. But the reality is that you just need to trust that you have a better 11 than them. And the way that I know that is because your safety, who I'm not going to name, your safety that started for you last year, that has been playing for you for a few years now, a couple of years now, who costed you mightily in every metric of the game of football and frankly defense, now starts for them like 70% of the time. And you now have him in man coverage or even zone coverage. Like, you have him guarding your receivers, and you need to attack him violently with Aaron Anderson and a little bit of Barry and Brown and a little Xavier Thomas. Because, bruh, look, listen to me. If there is one person on that defense that I want on the field, it's him, because you already know what he's capable of. And does he show up in the moment to play his former team? Maybe. Deshaun Womack will certainly, want to get on the field and have his, day in the sun. But I like this LSU defense a lot. And Lane's offense is going to score, and you're just going to have to get comfortable with Lane scoring points. And it comes to a point where the tempo could be what, maybe does it. Maybe this defense does get tired, maybe, and they start to give up points. You have to be ready to hit the open schemed plays. And Garrett, oftentimes the complaint from the same reliable source, from the same source that Tyler's talking about earlier in the comments, people like that oftentimes will blame, the offensive coordinator. And I'm not saying that Joe Sloan should be without blame, and he's certainly not without sin. But sometimes players do have to make the plays. Do you understand? Like, there needs to be accountability from that. And Garrett has to be better about trusting himself, trusting the play with what's called and what he sees, and rip it. And you can't perfectionally check into absolutely everything, every play. The tempo is what is going to ultimately be what I pay attention to. So I'm going to need some incomplete passes to give that defense a couple extra breaths, because that's Lane's hope, is to tire you out and get you in a track meet, score more points than you, and win the game. He doesn't care if it's, 65 to 56 or, or 21-2. It is going to be a track meet, and I want to make your guys tired, especially when you have an overpowering defense like this. So, I do think that that's going to be an interesting piece. The other interesting piece is the quarterback controversy, which Russo and I are going to talk about on the show on Thursday. And I will say that the quarterback controversy really isn't that much of a controversy to me, because I think Trinidad Chambliss is absolutely the better player. And the fact that, Lane still went to the podium and said that if Austin Simmons is healthy, then he's going to be the starter. I'm like, oh, dude, geez, please. Like, watch Vegas react to that news, by the way. If we find out that Austin Simmons is starting, you're going to see the odds go back down into LSU's favor. Which, by the way, I'm kind of hoping that gets to 3. I like to work on increments of 3 as it relates to spread, but that's just me. my sincere hope is that Austin Simmons plays, because Trinidad Shambles is good and he's got experience, maybe not at the D1 level. But he's got some experience and he's got some moxie, man. He doesn't fear putting that ball into the into a tight window and making it happen. And so I'm certainly nervous about maybe some things being exploited on this defense. And Lane always has that one play where in the middle of the game, the hands up in the air and the clipboard goes flying and someone's just 5 yards, 10 yards open, and it's like, there, we got him. So he's really good at the scheme. He's really good at like lulling you into knowing, into a rhythm, what you think he's going to do. And then that's when he breaks one off on you. So I am very, very interested to see how LSU is going to respond to that. I think that you have the horses to respond to that, but you must take what's given to you on offense, and you can't keep dropping the ball. You can't. You have to catch the football. I think that that's going to be a really big talking point for us, like I said on the Thursday show. And it's really something that I thought about, here lately, is that at LSU, you have the opportunity to really and truly be the best version of yourself on the brightest of lights. And sometimes that bright light might be enough, for some, but we can't have, multiple drops. I will say, I think it was Aaron Anderson that dropped like 2 balls in a row, pause. And then Garrett goes back to him for a third time on a converting down. So, you need to have some sort of, accountability on your offense, and not everything can be Joe Sloan's fault. There has to be some accountability. And maybe that accountability comes by way of Carius Kern getting into the mix too. Like maybe you can have some accountability with a young fellow that doesn't know any better. Like, I'll stay to whatever standard you want, Garrett. Whatever you want, coach. I just want to play. Maybe you can get it that way. Maybe if it's moving too fast for Weston Davis, you get Carius Kern in there. I think the swing man was going to be DJ Chester, but he's not going to play until the second half if he does play. So that's really, really unfortunate. But as it relates to the game itself, that's kind of like my thoughts. That's kind of my metric with it, and I really, really wanted to get that out there and let everybody know how we felt about that, and certainly get more to the nuts and bolts of everything. And so, as it relates to the rest of this episode, I think that's really it. Like, I really wanted to touch on those things. I'm not ready to make a pick yet. I would like for the game to get to 3, and then I would lean in the LSU favor. But that's kind of all we really wanted to discuss here. We really wanted to get you, some, what did I see? What am I not seeing? And really, come Thursday, we'll have like some specificity as it relates to, what we might see with Lane versus what we might see, with a game whenever he went and played in Kentucky. And it's the run defense that's very susceptible, and you can't run the ball well. So it's a bad on bad matchup. So, and then you got a good on good matchup with an offense and a defense. So, it's going to be interesting, but I'm really, really excited to hear about it from you guys. Excited to hear about what Russo has to say, and then if it makes it into his plays. But that's all we have for the afternoon. Again, please like and subscribe. Share it with your friends, your uncles, your aunties, friends, cousins, girlfriends, wives, children, whatever the case may be. Maybe not the kids. I cussed a couple of times. But definitely share and get the word out there, guys, because there are several different ways to help us out, and one of which is to just share it with everyone that you think might enjoy it. Clip one part, screen record a 2-second segment, and text it off to your boss that's an LSU fan. That's a really good way for us to get to 100 subscribers and let us do our first little giveaway. So really excited to be here, of course, as always, and love each and every one of you for tuning in and giving us that time of your day. But that's all for us. The last bit of it is, again, to just remember, Tuesdays feels like the day, but Mondays can sometimes work. Definitely keep out on the lookout rather for the TikTok. We're starting to get a couple of different ideas for that, some of which are at my expense, but that's okay. And again, just check out for the Twitter. We sometimes will post different things throughout the week on that, and we'll certainly have something to say on the Twitter here coming soon. Hint, hint, wink, wink, on the full schedule format from the SEC. And I know we're just going to have a deep dive on that. So I hope that you guys are ready and packed. Bring your lunchbox for Thursday, because we're certainly going to bring your appetite, rather, because we're going to have a dinner menu for a King's Ransom feast come Thursday night, with all the things that we want to say. But that's it for us. Thank you all so much. Love you. Talk soon. Peace.